We shared with our colleagues our assessments of the latest developments around the Ukrainian crisis, around the latest games that the Europeans are initiating, attempting to undermine the existing agreements between the Russian Federation and the United States. But President of Russia Vladimir Putin has repeatedly emphasized that if the agreements are not implemented, we know how to achieve the goals that were clearly outlined in June 2024 during his speech here at the Russian Foreign Ministry. Moscow is working. First and foremost, as the president emphasized again yesterday and in other situations, he is working to put an end to all of this. What the Ukrainian regime is doing is not even piracy anymore. Pirates at least rob and keep the loot for themselves. But here, it is neither for themselves nor for others. They simply want to inflict damage and intimidate. This is pure terrorism, which manifests itself not only in the Sea of Azov and, by the way, in the Black Sea, but also on the African continent. Wherever the Ukrainians see an opportunity to inflict damage upon the Russian Federation, as they see it, they will team up with anyone, including African extremists trying to overthrow popular legitimate regimes in Africa, and indeed with any other scum of society. But let me tell you this, we will in any case continue to fulfill all our obligations regarding food supplies to our African friends under commercial contracts, and within the framework of humanitarian aid. Accordance with their wishes. We know our neighbors very well, how they behave, how they want, by hook or by crook, to prevent Russia's cooperation with African countries. By and large, they want to return the situation in these African countries, to one degree or another, to a state where the former metropoles will call the shots there. I mentioned that such terrorist acts are being carried out not only in the Sea of Azov, but also in the Black Sea. Just yesterday, there was information in the Turkish media that new, rather powerful attacks by Ukrainian unmanned boats were carried out against Turkish vessels and tankers, as well as other vessels carrying Turkish cargo. This is by no means the first time, not to mention that the infrastructure of the Blue Stream gas pipeline going to Turkey is regularly subjected to terrorist attacks. We asked our Turkish colleagues how they intend to react to this, but we hope that they will be able to give some public assessment of these events, and also send a harsh, stern signal to the terrorist Kiev regime. With regard to the fight against terrorism, we are waging an uncompromising struggle here on various fronts and providing all kinds of assistance to our African friends. In Niger, in Mali, and generally for other countries in this region, the Africa Corps of the Russian Defense Ministry is operating. As representatives of these countries have just told us during the African trip, it is with its help, and above all thanks to its help, that the armed forces of Mali and Niger managed to suppress attempts at massive terrorist attacks. The facts are such that the United States and Iran signed a memorandum, in the first point of which, as I recall, Lebanon was mentioned 3 times. Everyone hoped that this memorandum would be implemented. President Putin has repeatedly said that we support this agreement and count on its implementation. Israel has stated publicly that it is not participating in this agreement. Therefore, it has its own rights in Lebanon, and it will be guided by these rights, rather than the memorandum signed by the U.S. and Iran. As for agreements in the future, I can only reiterate what we are seeing. Almost a year ago, another agreement was concluded, not signed, but concluded by the United States and Russia, when in Alaska the American side proposed a settlement option for the Ukrainian conflict, and President Putin accepted, agreeing to a settlement based on the scheme proposed by the United States. If you read President Trump's speech immediately after the Alaska summit, he spoke of the agreement in superlative terms, saying that we have now launched the peace process, and so on. Europe and Ukraine said that they did not participate, and it does not concern them. Now they have done everything to try to sidetrack the United States. President Trump is not commenting on these attempts and is not saying that the agreement reached in Alaska no longer exists. But the Europeans and the Ukrainian regime have publicly declared that the Alaskan agreements are dead, saying, "We buried them." We consider this a violation of the memorandum, and there is not even much to comment on here. This is sad because civilian infrastructure in Iran and civilian facilities in the countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council are suffering. This does not lead to anything good. Most importantly, it does not lead to a settlement. It closes the door which seemed to have been opened slightly by the memorandum you mentioned.